Good morning and welcome to Bridget Breiner, who is the Artistic Director and the Chief Choreographer of Badische Staatsballett Karlsruhe. And I probably got that wrong, but it's the best I can do. Good morning, Bridget.
Good morning. You did great. I'm really impressed.
So, nice American girl, huge career in Europe. Can you walk us through beginning, how you ended up in Europe, and you stayed?
Yeah, I wasn't planning to stay. I thought I'd come over and have the European experience and go home after 2 years, but it stuck on me. I'm from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and I had a teacher there who had danced in Stuttgart Ballet, so that started the connection.
Okay.
And I ended up then for 5 years in Munich first, and shortly thereafter in Stuttgart, and that was really where I had, let's say, my artistic awakening. That's where I had most of my dance career. I was a principal dancer there for many years, and then things started moving in other directions, as they do at that age.
I had to ask, how old were you when you went over to Europe?
I was 17.
Okay, and did you speak, Breiner could be almost anything. Did you speak German before you went over?
I did a crash course in German, but my family is German. Nobody spoke the language though.
Okay. And when you arrived, was there culture shock, or is ballet such its own world that you just kind of slipped in and started putting on your shoes and got into rehearsal and it just went from there?
It was huge culture shock, and I'd never lived away from home before, and it was the 90s, which, there was no internet. It was a once a week phone call to my parents and lots of letter writing. So it was a really different situation. I think it made it a little bit easier in some ways because I just had to do it. It was what I wanted to do.
So we can talk about your dance career, but I'm particularly interested, your choreographic career got its start at the Nouvelle Society's Young Choreographers program. Tell us a little bit about that. Did you have to be shoved into it, or did you raise your hand?
I had to be shoved into it. I had a really good friend from the opera, actually, who kept saying it's important for your artistic development as a dancer to have experienced choreographing once. And I finally did it because I had a season where I wasn't doing so much for 2 months. And so I made a 4-minute duet that took us 4 months to make. It was a very deep process.
So tell me sort of short form about your process. What comes first? It sounds like what came first was the opportunity, and then you had to figure it out from there. Is it an idea, an inspiration, a piece of music? Is it the dancers you're working on?
I have to say that changes with every piece. For me, it is often the situation. Now that I'm a director in particular, I find that I come up with ideas because I think that's what the company needs. Either a dancer needs it or the city needs it, but I choreograph for a company.
That's the first time I've heard that, and that's fascinating. Yeah, can you explain a little bit about what this, when you say the city needs it? I think that's a wonderful concept. It's very generous, but it's also quite daunting.
Yeah, it is daunting, but it gives me more inspiration. Of course, story ballets are loved. Everyone loves a story ballet, but I also find it important that audiences be challenged a little bit. So I look for ways of telling stories that maybe are not linear, that we can maybe find a way of using dance and particularly classical ballet in new ways for telling stories. So on the one hand, trying to serve the audience something that they want, but also serve them something that maybe is a new door for them into something new.
I've always wanted to ask this, and this is my first chance. So you're the chief choreographer and the artistic director. Do you take big leaps with the audience? Do you have an arc you're following? Do you sort of bring them along little bit by little bit? Do you go back and forth? And how do you measure when an audience is ready to see something?
I'm going to have to talk about my last job because I just started this season. I've only been here for 9 months in Karlsruhe, and now we're all at home in lockdown. Before this, I directed a company in Gelsenkirchen, also in Germany, a smaller company, and in that case, I did it in leaps. I would say in small leaps. Like now we can try a story told this way, and now we can try it a little bit more. We can try a story that maybe you've never heard of before. I find the German public quite open, though. They are used to going to theater, and that is a really big help for us.
Yeah, I think I talk about this statistic all the time, but there are half as many reporters in the United States as there were 20 years ago. And the first thing that gets cut is arts reporting. We also have a multiplicity of channels. And the other thing is that a lot of what people see on the stage doesn't resonate. So I think they don't come back very often. There's also a fear, I think, of being stupid, not understanding. You know, we all, or most of us, felt that in middle school. And once you're an adult, you don't want to go back to that place of feeling stupid or, you know, out of place. And I have seen sort of more of a willingness in European audiences to hold back judgment and also to say, okay, if I don't get it, it's not on me, right?
Yeah, yeah. They just grow up with it. There's a really big, they call it the Theaterlandschaft, so the theater landscape. Every little town has their theater, which means that they have their own little orchestra and probably some kind of opera company, maybe a dance company, maybe actors, all in one building. And that really creates this feeling that this is this little center of performing arts in the town, that we do that together. And I find that that's much different in the United States. You're much more.
And the audience is multi-age too. And one of the things that we were talking about, me walking the Camino, I was delighted to see was people really have lunch together. And you have teenagers and toddlers all the way up to great grandparents all talking together. It's not siloed conversations. Do you see that in the theater as well, multi-generational?
Yes, I mean, we have a lot that's quite international. That I think there are 46 different nations in our theater alone. And I'm talking about all different, you know, musicians and singers and actors and all different kinds of people. But I find that a really good representation that this multicultural, it's kind of the multicultural center. I think with the age, it depends more on what you're capable of doing. You know, what can you're capable of understanding.
Talk to me a little bit about, since you are in a new position, what the interview process was like and how both sides decided it was a good fit.
In my case, the intendant, that's my boss, he's the head of the whole theater. He had heard about me and came to see some of my choreography in the theater in Gelsenkirchen, and we met on a few occasions then. There was a larger interview process. He was quite interested from the beginning, but I did have to speak with a panel of politicians, basically the Verwaltungsrat of the theater, and also then from the city, several politicians were involved. I know they had quite a number of candidates, colleagues that I mean, I don't know who everyone was, but I know it was not an easy job to get. There was good competition in this.
And from your side, what made you say, yes, this is worth it, or it's a logical next step, or I'm intrigued by?
Yeah, I felt it was a company, I don't know if you know how much about the company before, but Birgit Keil, the Stuttgart prima ballerina who was there in John Cranko's glory years, she was running the company the last, I believe, 16 years before I came. And she'd really set up a strong classical company. And I find that really inspiring these days. I come from classical dance. I actually don't know very many female choreographers who stay in classical dance when they start choreographing. Most of them somehow go in another direction. And it was just so important to me to work with classical dancers and to try to discover more in that field. How do we advance that art form? How do we grow with that? How do we express new things with that? So I found that really intrigued me, that it was a company that loved classical dance already.
That's absolutely marvelous. And if we have 5 hours, I would love to go deep into that with you. We'll come back.
I could do it.
Oh my gosh, I would so love that. We'll come back to it at the end a little bit. So you're new in your job, and then you show up and things sort of close down. Talk about what you're doing right now to stay productive. And also, if we have a second, I'd love to hear about the transition from the previous artistic director to you. Are you still working together at all?
Yeah. Well, right now, we were right before a premiere. We were 6 weeks before what was going to be my big premiere of the season for the company when we shut down.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch. And I have to say, at that moment, we still somehow thought, oh, we'll come back, we'll be able to rehearse earlier and we'll do the premiere the next day. Somehow we thought it would still happen. Yeah, we've let that thought go. The company's been working from home quite a bit. I know everyone does Zoom classes right now. We've had a lot of Zoom classes. I've been really, I found it really important for our group that people decide how they want to train. So I had talks with all of the dancers about what they were doing, but we didn't require them to show up in our classes. We offered those classes, but I knew a lot of them were trying different things, which I found important in this time because I think they need their artistic process as well. They need to also digest what's going on right now.
That's lovely.
Well, it's how we felt about it. I started giving artistic tasks after the first week, things that they could do, not necessarily dance-wise, but things that they could paint or write poems about or make a play about or make a film about, or they just things to keep them creative, and they have to hand them in to me a little bit like homework. So that was one of the big things we did.
Do you know anybody else who's done that? I mean, that is totally new to me.
I've heard of other choreographers. Well, I mean, this is the difference between a company run by a choreographer and a company run by a good ballet master. I think the choreographer maybe thinks more quickly of stuff like that, because that's what I need when they come back. I need them to be creative and not just machines. I need them to be artistically involved in the process.
So let's come back, because I think we've come full circle a little bit. Talk about your process when you're choreographing with your dancers. It sounds like it's very collaborative, and it's sort of the anti-balancing, stand there, look pretty, don't say a word. It sounds like you need a lot back from your dancers.
I need a lot back from them, and I have to see something in them. I mean, I have to, how do I say this? For example, in our small company in Gelsenkirchen, we had 14 dancers, and I decided we needed to do Romeo and Juliet for the public. And I had a Juliet and a Romeo who I saw as a Romeo, but probably nobody else saw him as a Romeo. But that's how we built that ballet then. That was created because I saw it that way. I think that's probably normal for many choreographers. But I have found that that's very important to me in the process, and it's been difficult for me to work with another company because I get to know the people so well.
Yep, and I was just going to ask that, and I've asked this question a couple of other times. So you create a work with dancers in mind, you're used to working with them, great symbiotic relationship, and then it comes time to switch companies, to expand, to elaborate, to iterate. How does that look for you?
It's challenging. I found it really challenging, and I realized that the openness I have when I create it is not there anymore when it has to go on to a new cast, because then I pick at every little detail, but because it's so important to me, not that they copy their predecessor, but that they find the same essence, like what was the important thing when we made that role. We need to find that in this person. So it takes a long time, actually. I'm often surprised, because when I'm choreographing, I'm quite free.
This is probably a really dumb question, definitely a civilian question, but has the change of the stage and the size of the company affected how you think about your choreography, your artwork, your vision?
Very much, very much. I realized in the smaller company, it was absolutely normal for me and necessary that the entire company be on stage in every premiere. That I knew that I would create a role for all 14 dancers. It put us in a horrible position if someone got hurt, because then we take someone from this and slide them up, but then there's a big hole in the piece. And here I realized I miss that structure a little bit. The structure sort of gave me a form that was helpful. the limitation was helpful to me. I find the options are too big at the moment, and so I'm discovering how to get along with that. I think it will be fine. I have to get used to it, but it's interesting how the limitations help.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, you're sort of blowing yourself up now, but you must have known that was going to be the case in some ways.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Set yourself that challenge. Okay, here we go. The fun part, the lightning round. Just
Here.
again, we're playing tennis at the net here, so super short and snappy. Favorite dance memory?
I want to say tap dancing recently, actually.
Oh, wonderful. It is so hard, by the way.
It's so hard.
So hard. As
Yes.
is, I found, have you tried hip hop yet?
No.
Try hip hop. Good luck.
Okay.
Everybody goes, hey, I'm going ho. Everybody's going right, I'm going left. I mean, it's so hard. Favorite ballet created by somebody else?
Voluntaries by Glenn Tetley.
Wow, okay. Favorite ballet you've created?
Prospero's Insel, the Tempest. We called it Prospero's Insel in German.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Broadway or West End? Something else.
Broadway.
Broadway, there we go. This is the one that everybody starts looking at the ceiling and starts smiling on. Dream travel destination post-lockdown.
Oh, yeah, a lake outside of Winnipeg, funny enough. My husband's from Winnipeg, but there's a cottage on a lake that's waiting for us.
And I hope you get there. Send me a photo, by the way, when you do. That would be so great. La Bayadere, Le Corsaire, or neither, something else?
Oh, something else, I think, actually, for me. Oh, I have to say something else.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, Romeo and Juliet, from anybody.
From anybody, okay.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure. And make it a really guilty one.
Oh, God, guilty pleasure, trashy novels in the summer.
Yes, yes. There's a couple of really good ones that are coming out, supposedly.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Romantic classical tutu or pancake tutu?
Pancake tutu.
Palais Garnier, Royal Opera House, Metropolitan Opera House, or something in your adopted country?
Oh, something in my adopted country. How wonderful. Oh, I think the Stuttgart Opera House, actually.
I have never been. I have to come do that. Someday I will meet you there.
It's beautiful.
Rubies, emeralds, or diamonds?
Rubies. This is for the public who knows their balance sheet, obviously.
Or not. Maybe they'll get interested and go look. Adagio or Allegro?
Oh, for me it was Adagio.
Favorite city?
Berlin.
It's an incredible city.
Isn't it wonderful? I hope it stays wonderful.
It's like 5 different cities in some ways.
Yeah.
Bar or center?
Center right now. Oh my God. I'm so sick of doing a bar.
Fair enough. Beach or mountain?
Mountains.
Graham or Cunningham?
Oh, Graham.
Point shoes, ballet slippers, barefoot, or something else?
Point shoes, always point shoes. I was a ballerina.
And there we go. And that's what you said you're interested in working with. Okay, so let's circle back to some of the big cultural questions. And so interested, so intrigued, so excited by the fact that you said so many women choreographers move away from the classical canon or language. I'd be interested to know why you think that is. And if we're going to stay in the classical canon, what do you think can be done to make it more hospitable to women, both in terms of bringing forward choreographers, but also doing what you're doing, which is running a company?
It's a really good question. Why? I don't know why women who danced the ballets don't make the ballets, except that when there was a point in my career when I was still dancing and I wanted to be dancing certain roles, and I was sort of between, I'd left Stuttgart, I was kind of freelance at the moment, and I missed a certain type of role, and I thought, oh my God, you're a choreographer, just make it for yourself. And I realized that I couldn't make a Tatiana or a Giselle or a Juliet on myself because they had been projections of men. They were made by male choreographers with an idea about an idealized woman.
Yep.
And as a dancer, it was so wonderful to step into that role and to be that person. I never felt smaller as a woman by stepping into the role of Tatiana. I felt bigger. But I couldn't, as a woman, make a role like that for myself. And I don't know really why. It felt foolish to make that role for myself. I could do something else. You were going to ask a question.
No, it's fine. One of the things that I have admired so much about female choreographers, whether it's Annabelle Lopez Ochoa or others, is how they reimagine roles, archetypes from the female perspective. What I haven't seen yet, Bridget, is a woman choreographer imagining a male role completely differently and new. And since men have done it for generations, wouldn't it be fun to see a male character fully developed, maybe the center of the ballet, told from a woman's perspective?
It's interesting. I've only done it once, and that was exactly the ballet you asked about, Prospero's Insel, The Tempest. And I got really, really interested in Prospero. And I don't know, I guess I didn't think of it as a particularly male character, but I think there's a certain machoism in the nature of that man that makes him so stubborn that,
Yes.
that we would say a female would maybe find a different way of dealing with the situation. I really loved doing that ballet. It was really beautiful to see, but it's true, all of my other protagonists, I always see it from the female point of view, almost without wanting to. I just do.
Although, I mean, and I brought that up in part because of Prospero, but it doesn't happen very much. And if you think about Ariel, Ariel is not a male and not a female, and I think that's missed in so many productions, is that it's a spirit, it's not a sexuality, it's not a human being. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that. So tougher question, or maybe less tough, what can we at Dance Data Project do to help women globally who want to step onto the other side of the room, who want to command a room, or who want to choreograph a piece, run a company, some other role?
That is a really tough question. It feels to me like those things, they have to come from the woman. I mean, how do we help her do that? That is a really good question. I don't know how to help someone do it. I think in my case, I had a lot of help from the outside, in the sense I had a name that helped a lot in Germany, that I was known as a principal dancer of the Stuttgart Ballet. It kind of got my foot in the door. I was also, amongst the people who make these decisions, I was known as someone who was not a stupid ballerina, but I was someone who thought about things and could talk about things. And I think one of the big things with with a leading position is just being able to talk. And that, I find that really difficult. I find a press conference a challenging thing if everybody else is a man. One does have a certain, one has a certain gift that one is special in that group of people, but it is not always helpful.
Yep, I get it. Although this is one of the best interviews we've done, the most cogent, the most focused. So obviously you have a talent for it.